It's not like Google Plus where I have to wait. It's just recording instantly,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Insta on. That's nice. All right. Podcasters Roundtable, round 63, maybe. I don't know, Dave. I don't know. It's going to be a long layoff for the holiday season because, well, my daughter's out of school for like almost 2 weeks, which is quite frankly ridiculous. But yeah, there will be no recording. However, soon, or at least next year, that won't be an issue. The French doors went in the side. They punched a big giant hole in the side of my studio today. And so I have more pictures to share with people of the studio build. But I have now 2 giant, large pieces of plate glass in the side of a podcast studio. It's not exactly the thing you would do if you were trying to make a completely soundproof studio.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a blend of studio and office, and it's got to be a comfort space, right?
Right.
Anyways, that was the last Podcasters Roundtable Blab edition that we did, was building a podcast studio. It actually is on YouTube, so go to youtube.com/thepodcasterstudio. You can see that there. That was a fun one. That didn't go in the feed, but this one's going to be fun. I think one of the things we may end up doing is repurposing some of these conversations as roundtables, because the last one we did, the studio one, was great and had no shortage of conversation there. And I think this one is going to be a blast. So I asked one question. Let me tweet that out right now. How come? Oh, it says with you. Nice. It's recording a GIF for us, apparently. Funny how it does that. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should do something for when we know it's recording. It's recording GIF. So whatever it recorded is now live.
Nice.
A little birdie tweeted out. So I asked one question. How many, I'll put in parentheses, podcasting domains do you own? And I told Dave this was the question maybe like 15 minutes ago. And his response was?
Now, you said, I'd have to go back and look now. In terms of all domains.
Yeah. No. Okay, yes, I did throw the podcasting in there. No, Dave, how many domains do you own?
97. Because I forgot I had a Namecheap account, and I walked over there and I had another 10, and I was like, because 87 was just small potatoes. But yeah, I went a little crazy. I have I have davesblanksite.com.
My response to that is you need 3 more. Not holy crap. You need 3 more to make an even 100.
Yeah.
You bought one yesterday.
I bought one today. I think it's favorite cast. My favorite.
You don't even know.
I think it's
Dave, you have a problem.
Favoritecastshow.com.
Well, here, I came up with a fun game. After you told me that 97 domains, I instantly went to my notepad and wrote down a couple notes to play. Let's play guess the domain name. So I want to guess what some of those 97 might actually be. Here are my guesses for Dave Jackson.
Okay.
Flatteningthelearningcurve.com. Do you own it?
Should, but I don't. I gotta write
someone. By the way, these are going to get stolen.
I know.
Immediately. You can sell them to Dave after the show. Hitladies.com.
No,
that one you might want to be careful with.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure you can't get that one. Backintheday.com. Probably something else you can't get, but Dave should own.
Let me see here.
You actually think you might own that?
No, I don't. But I that was when I was like, oh, you know what? But that would be a good one to have.
And the granddaddy of them, does Dave Jackson own casturbaiting.com?
That one I do own.
You do really own that?
Yeah, I actually own, I think it's casturbation.
Hey. Okay.
Yeah, backintheday.com is taken, but I could have backintheday.buzz.co.support.
Well, I'll tell you what it shouldn't be, a .tv. I went and re-upped a .tv.
Don't you hate those?
Yes and no. I mean, I bought it, but I hated it because them because they're kind of a ripoff. So
yeah.
I went to domain.com because I got a great deal, right? And so for the first year, it's great. And then it came due last night, and they already charged me for the privacy. I always get the privacy thing on whatever, if I should or shouldn't, I do. And that was like $11. And then to renew the domain was like $30 for a year. This is a domain I've never used.
Oh,
so
here's
what I did. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's way worse.
But I have .fm.
And that's worse than .tv.
It's like $70.
Dude, you got to get. I mean, okay. This is going to lead to a very important question for us here. On top of how many domains do you have? In fact, I don't know how many domains I have, but there's certainly only a fraction what Dave has. I probably have 10. They're all theoretically podcasting domains. They're all theoretically linked to podcasting, but I can dig into that more later. The .tv, I gave myself one more year. If I don't use it, because the plan is to create a show, a video show on top of it. But here's the thing. When you have an expensive domain like that and you still haven't built a brand on it, do you want to go and build a brand on that? Because now what if I build a brand that's successful? I then now have to pay. I'm stuck with that domain. I mean, on some level, I'm stuck with it. I can always change. But I don't know that I probably, I almost didn't buy it, but it's like, do I really want to build on top of someone sort of has control in that situation? So Dave, for you, have you built a solid brand on top of that?
No, I have schoolofpodcasting.fm, which is a site I used for a streaming station, which is hilarious because the streaming station promotes powerofpodcasting.com. So I'm really not building anything on it. I mean, there's something there, but I'm actually thinking of just like, no, thank you. It's not, there's no return on investment for that.
That's too much money.
Yeah,
it's too much money. And yeah, I mean, you know what would be nice? Here's the thing. Here's another question. Does anybody track how the domains they own actually, if they're doing anything, right? Are people going to the alternate domain? So in podcasting, sometimes we talk about, hey, get your .com, but then buy up, just like you mentioned, Dave, the .me, the .us, the .org. Well, you can't always get the .org, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Do you track if people are even going to any of these other domains?
I don't. I have them. I have numerous ones that all point back to the original one, but that should go through like a pretty link or something so I could see, is it worth having? Because on one hand, it's so easy, which is what I'm doing as we speak. I now own Castorbait and Castorbation.com. I actually didn't own those. So, I'm on a roll. So
you're welcome.
Yeah.
And I bought another one. So I paid re-up that expensive one, bought a brand new one. You can go to boringtestvideo.com.
Nice.
And here's why. So I accidentally created that because I put out a video. If you watch my videos, they're hyper produced in the fact that I put a lot of cuts and a lot of edits and a lot of a lot of B-roll and graphics and all that stuff into it. It takes forever. And so I recorded something that was literally just a test for myself, but I thought, why not share that? My audience might enjoy it because if I have that question, they might as well. And I put it out there and I put in the title graphic, like just boring test video, blah, blah. I was like, oh, boring test video. And then of course what do? You go to hover.com or whatever your domain registrar is, you type it in, and when it's available, you can't not buy it. You're like, I can't believe that's available. And you're like, here I go. I got to buy another one, right? And the .coms they're affordable. I mean, you're going to pay around $10 or something, but always look for a promo code, by the way, and get your 10% off from somewhere. Yeah. But, so I created this other boringtestvideo.com. It just forwards to I believe, my Patreon site right now. But I have plans to build out. So I have a YouTube channel. It's got Podcasters Roundtable on it. It also has my other YouTube stuff where I teach basically how to make high quality video. I do some audio tutorials there too as well, but there's kind of multiple, I don't know if you call it brands there. I mean, I think we're all our own brand, right? Like I'm a brand, especially when it comes to YouTube. Dave Jackson is a brand, but do I really want to start promoting boringtestvideo.com? Because am I confusing brand? People are just one more thing to remember. And they're like, what is this other thing? So when you get another website, or a domain, how confusing is it a good idea? I guess is the good question.
See, that's a good question because I own podcastconsultant.com and I should put a site on that and really promote me. But right now it's just pointing at the school of podcasting. So It's kind of like, do I want to compete with myself over the same thing?
It's almost like you've already built a solid brand somewhere else, School of Podcasting or Dave Jackson.
Yeah, I mean,
and now you're starting over.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Like, how many brands do you build?
Exactly. I mean, the reason I have davidjackson.org. I'm still here. Yes.
Dave Freeze.
Okay.
Is it?
Am I back?
Oh, there he is. Yes, you're back.
Okay.
Oh, I froze.
Yeah. When I have davidjackson.org, and I never planned on having a blog, and I started blogging a little bit, was playing with it, and then all of a sudden I did a Google search once on podcasting, and it was like in the top 10. And I was like, well, I'm not killing it now. It's like, so otherwise I'd be blogging on the School of Podcasting. But so that was why I didn't, I had no real plan for that. I just was like, oh, let's play with WordPress on this. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow, I'm ranking. So
so there was a good question. Emily, she said, does Dave own BinkyandTheWiz.com?
I should. I think I did buy that one. I
do
own BinkyandTheWiz.com, yes.
Dave?
And that was
ring winner.
That's it. Tell her what she's won.
Hey, Emily, you've won 2-night stay at the worst hotel on the planet. Yeah. Ray and Dave.
Well, the
podcast hotel.
I played a fun little joke on Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast. He always used to refer to myawesomepodcast.com. And
we talked about this on the last roundtable.
And I'm like, somebody is going to snatch that. And I'm like, all right. So I went over and bought it. I had it for months. I think I had it pointing at schoolpodcasting.com. And so
oh, go ahead.
And so finally one day Daniel sends me an email. Okay, very funny. I was like, all right, here you go. Give me your $10. I'll give it to you. But I thought it'd be interesting to see how long it would take him to figure out.
Nice. So here's a good question. Dave, do you listen to the roundtables you're not on?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was a good show.
Yeah. I was trying to make sure you weren't driving and trying to type into the show at the same time.
Yeah.
I know you were headed to Michigan somewhere.
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah. I was all over the place. So yeah, I did. I was trying to, and then I was like, I'll just listen to it later because it's a podcast.
Yeah. So we will pull some people in here. We got one more question. Morpheus asks, what are your thoughts on .xyz domains? I own none of them. So I guess my thoughts are, here's a question. Well, first answer that one, Dave. Do you have any thoughts on .xyz?
I think it was the very first iPad. They actually had a .com button, if I remember it. There was some device somebody had at New Media Expo, and it had a .com button. And I was like, you know what? They don't have a .guru button or .coffee or .whatever. To me, I go .com, .net, .org. Anything after that, I'm not sure. It just, it's a good question because I don't think worse of somebody that goes, oh, my thing is how to podcast whatever, because I know it's not available. So they went with whatever they thought, it's .nz or whatever, XYZ.
Yeah. And that's something I want to talk about. I asked this question on Google Plus a couple weeks ago. Do you own the name of your show.com? So save that because that one's a fun topic.
Man, do they need that?
Wait, what? I think we confused. What need what?
They should because
okay. Well, then hold it. We'll have that discussion. Yeah. But I'm also curious to jump off of Morpheus' question here. How many alternate domains do you think of the 97, Dave? How many are .biz, .tv, .whatever? What's the big alternative? It's like not .us. What does everyone else default to after? I'm always trying to remember. What's the one that you get after you can't get .com?
I'm seeing a lot of .me's lately.
.me's. I have So we know Daniel's got the MX. Look at we're on a website right now that is .im. Right. I'm sure. Hey, what's at blab.com? Is it this? I'm sure it is, but is it? Why did they go to blab.im? Let's take a look. What's at blab.com? Do I want to know? See? So they built a whole, it's a scary website. It's
IM assistant messaging, they're saying in the chat room.
Blab.com is like it's something about Muslim news or something. I'm not sure.
Nice.
I did see Bergdahl on there though. So Serial's on there. Serial's everywhere. You can't avoid it.
Right.
So anyways, let's. I don't see any other questions currently, and before we pull people in to ask them about their domains and to answer any of the questions we're talking about here. We're seeing .org, .io, .net back in the day.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't get .com, so you got the Ray Ortega .net.
Yeah, I have schoolofpodcasting.net. I have schoolofpodcasting.fm and .tv. So, yeah, but I was so I'm working on my next episode is all about people's favorite podcasts. And in some cases, people were really good about saying, like, my favorite podcast is the Podcasters Roundtable at podcastersroundtable.com. My show is blah, blah, blah. And then I'd have to go find their show because I want to put a link to their show for contributing. And it's amazing how many times it's not easy to find your show by putting in the name of your show. And I'm like, that's a problem. And then in some cases I've found it's not a big deal. It came up, but it was just odd that it's a network. Like a network will have, whatever network.com/show/whatever. And I'm like, ooh, you think there'd be like you
still need a redirect.
Yeah, because then you're tied into that network. If you ever want to leave the network, what's going to happen there? So, and I was really surprised because I went to like page 2 and 3 thinking, surely there's a .com somewhere or .net or nothing. It was, I'm on the network and I was like, ooh, I hope you really, really trust your network because, things change, people change.
Yeah. Hey, news in the Podcasters Roundtable space. Podcasters Roundtable, speaking of domains, podcastersroundtable.com/live. We'll now be going there. Chatting will be so much better for everybody. You can pop out the chat. You'll have the video. So when we do have another regular Podcasters Roundtable, I could have embedded this here, but this chat works fine. Plus, you get to ask those questions. So it really works well on Blab. But the Hangout Kludgy system I had before will be better. So check that out next time. We got to put that out there so we can get as many people there as possible next time. But back to this issue, do you have the domain name of your show? It's worded weirdly, but this is a tip that we probably both give when people are starting a podcast and you're thinking about the name of your show. Go see if the domain is available first. I think it's really important because the one thing people are going to remember, maybe the two things, your name and the name of your show. And when they go to find more info, people they're not going to dig very far for very long. Podcast audiences might, because they're a little bit more into the brand, the person, the topic, whatever. But you want to make it easy, right? So I usually check before I build a brand on something, is the .com available? It just makes life easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people, come up with a bunch of names for your show and then go and look and see which ones have the .com available. And if it's not available, tack on the word show or radio. And usually
that's the next question. Yeah. Do you do the tack on thing? I do produce a show called Whistling in the Dark that was not available. So Whistling in the Dark show, we added. That's a huge domain. There's another issue too. Lots of opportunities to mistype that one. So we also went out and got WITD show. So you can do acronyms sometimes, right? But yeah, if I'm going to tack on something these days, it's usually going to be show, not podcast. That said, at work, we had no choice. I would say I had no choice but to tack on the word podcast because it's the podcast for a magazine. So good luck with that one. When you say this is Micro Magazine, wait, what? Well, okay, it's the podcast for you have to say Micro Magazine podcast. Like you can't almost avoid it. You could say Micro Magazine show, but then it sounds weird. So those are always very interesting to me, those use cases, or tacking on something to the end of your URL that then makes it that much longer. But at least I think if you do that, you need to just say it in your show like all the time. It's one of those advertising things, right? Hear it 7 times to remember it.
Yeah, I just know if you have to spell your domain to people, the 400th time you do it, you're going to go, I picked the wrong name. Because I still have it, Podcast Fast Pass. And if you say that fast, people are like, what was it? Podcast Fast. So, yeah. So that's, if you have to spell the domain, and the one I don't know about, like how much SEO juice you get by having the keyword in your domain. I don't know how big that is or not, because people go, yeah, it's the, we're still 50 and not dead show. It's the WSTMKXbingo.com because they've spelled it out. And I'm like, ew. And that's one that you can still get in trouble with. You want to stay away from the word for and the word to, anything that's a number. Like when I have one of the domains I just said to let go is podcasting the number 4 free. I have podcastingforfree.com, but I was like, you know what? I'm never doing anything with this anyway. Let's at least lose one of these. So I do go through and thin the herd from time to time.
Yeah, and there was something else reminded me, but let's get John Buchanan asked, which is a good question. Let me pull that up here. He says, why is using show better than podcast? Now, I'm the one that said that. It's a personal preference. For me, I think that, podcast is the delivery format. Podcasts these days are going beyond the borders of podcasting feeds, right? They're being delivered to other places outside of podcasting feeds. I've always said, I've used the two terms for me interchangeably, and people more often, a general public more often, they understand show. They get it. They know what a show is. These days, more people know what a podcast is, but it feels like I'm putting it into a very specific hole that show doesn't feel like I'm doing. So I like show. It's also shorter. I was
gonna say anything that's shorter, yeah. and it depends because I forgot the name of the one domain. It was really long, but it still worked because it was. I had it right in front of me. Doggone it. But it was a word. It was like a bunch of small words that I was like, that's really long. But on the other hand, it was really easy to spell. Art of Manliness. Nope.
Jim Collison says he's using podcast in one of the new shows, and it sounds better, but sometimes show fits better. And that's kind of my example with the magazine one I just said. There's an instance where I'm using podcast because it does sound better. It makes more sense. So these are always there is no general rule to apply to all situations, right? We know that about everything, and it certainly applies here.
Yeah, so the domain I was looking for is you must remember this podcast.com. And I was like, that's a mouthful. But the name of the show is You Must Remember This. So if you take that, throw on podcast, I'm like, okay. It's where you get into the thing like Podcasters Studio.
There you go. And I was going to bring that up. So my primary brand, well, this audience, maybe that's Roundtable, but the Podcaster Studio has the double S in it. Well, what do? I own the Podcaster Studio. I also own Podcaster Studio without the, right? So there's a case where I was able to grab several iterations of the same name so that in case whatever you type in, you're going to get to Podcaster Studio. I might have done that with Roundtable as well. I'm not sure. But, what do? I guess it's the show podcast tack on thing or acronym thing. What do you do when you've built a brand, a podcast, and the domain's not available? I'm sure there are people in the chat room that have dealt with that. So let's bring some people in. I got Alan Tepper waiting to jump in. We'll bring him in, and he may not be answering this question, but we will see what Alan has to say. What's up, Alan?
Hi, how are you tonight?
Beautiful audio, man. Nice.
We've exchanged lots of emails. And Dave and I have only exchanged one, but it's nice to be talking to you for the first time tonight. How's
Look at that. Going? One email later, you're in front of Dave Jackson. It's going great. Thanks, Alan.
Ray and I have exchanged several, and I don't know anything about the current question, but I did send you an email before this blab started to offer you some information about IDN domains, which are domains that include accent marks, and the importance if you do get a domain with an accent mark or other diacritical letters to include the exact same domain name without it, since most people who type in a domain won't be typing in the version with the accent mark. So that way you forward the one that doesn't have it to the one that does. And then the way that you handle that, it depends on where most of your audience is. So if there are any questions about that, I have done several domains that way. And I've also used, for the Castilian speaking market, I've used several domains with the new .soy domain, which is SOY, which is introduced by Google specifically for Hispanics in the United States and throughout the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, and this is why I always go back to, the .com is, if you can only buy one, obviously .com, but every time I go in to find a domain name, and Alan, I think I can hear myself coming out of your speakers. It sounds like you've turned it down just a little bit.
Yes, I'm doing that now.
What was I saying? That I see new extensions like every time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this one is specifically good as the corresponding of the .me for a personal site. Obviously, you wouldn't want to use a .me for a business name or something like that, but somebody's personal blog, where in English it would be a .me, the equivalent would be the .soy for that. And of course, people don't speak that language will think that you're promoting soy, like soy milk or something like that, or soybeans. But that's what it's about. And as far as the accent mark is concerned, obviously, if you have a proper name that includes an accent mark, if you do not get the domain with that accent mark, you are in danger of someone else getting the domain and messing up with you. So if you have a business name or a magazine name, as the example that you gave earlier, if the proper name includes an accent mark, you definitely want to get the domain with and without the domain. The price is the same. And obviously you don't have to repeat the price of the hosting or anything, because you're just going to redirect one to the other depending on the situation.
Yeah, it's a good tip. I mean, it's definitely something that I don't think in the U.S. would probably deal with as much, right? I mean, I don't know how many. I've never run into a domain with an accent.
There are certain trademarks in the United States that include accent marks, including Nestle,
no doubt,
and Nescafe and Bacardi, if you know their rum. So there are certain trademarks in the United States that do it, and of course, personal first names and last names that may have them. But of course, to answer your question, it's more popular outside of the United States than in.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's probably good to wrap that into an international.
Has more listeners outside of the United States than in right now, the Capicua FM show that I do. But
Definitely.
Everybody has a different situation. But there may be people listening right now who are interested in those details. So I just thought I'd bring those details up to you.
No, it's perfect, and we need to do a roundtable that is focused on international podcast, like anything but the US, because that's what is, at least it seems like gets written about the most. So, definitely like file that one away to go into the tip for podcasting outside of the US, because I think that's
yes, and you haven't really talked too much about registrars tonight in this blab that you're doing, but if you want to talk about that, I can mention the one that I happen to like. I don't get any referral or anything. I don't have a referral code or anything with them. They have them, but they never work, and it only works out to be about 3 cents. So it's no big deal even to try to do it. But the one that I use for all the domains except for the .soy is called Dynadot, which is DYNADOT.com. And I use Google's own registrar for the .soy just because they have a better price, because they were the one who made up that particular TLD, which is the .soy. But all the other ones that I used, all the .coms, all the .nets, and everything I do at Dynadot, I like their price and I like their service very well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, they're definitely a dime a dozen. I would encourage people. When I got my .tv, I went to domain, but I usually go hover. I mean, there's 50 million sites, so shop for the best price.
Yeah, I think the key is, especially if you're doing a .com, you do not need to spend $100. That's what always gets me. I know the days of I forget one of the original registers. It was like $80 a year for a domain. It was crazy. So
yeah, go look somewhere else.
Yeah, but if you don't know, here it is. It's crazy.
Of course, crazy. They need to be right around the range of $10 or $15.
Yeah.
And when you start to do more volume with a particular registrar, you often get discounts. That's what happens to me. But it needs to be in that range.
Yeah, that's Network Solutions. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, that was the people. They're just reaming people. And I use GoDaddy and I use Namecheap. I was just playing with Namecheap and then just started throwing things over there. But I found out later that GoDaddy, like you said, if you have enough domain names, they sell you, I want to say it's like $100 a year, and then you get your domains like $3 off. Well, if you have enough domain names, that pays for itself.
We know, in your case, Dave is part of the.
Well, the other thing I like about them is, I don't know if it's because I have that or what, but they did call me this week to let me know I had a couple domains expiring and wanted to make sure, which was good because in that case I had 3 that I said, no, let them go. I'm not going to keep the Jillian Michaels show anymore. So
yeah, if they were on auto renew, that's bad for them. But
Dave, do you mean they called you on the phone or they emailed you?
No, they called me on the phone.
Wow.
Yeah, they're like, which is kind of at times annoying because they do that a lot. Like every month, they're like, "Hey, you got more domain?"
Yeah, I wouldn't want that on the phone. Just it's enough to get it through email, and that's the way I usually get it.
So, but they're
interesting to know that they do that.
Yeah, they're really cool. If they're like, because they usually say, "Is this a good time to talk?" And I'll say no, and they're like, "Okay, here's our number."
Almost never is.
Yeah, and then they always say, if you want, we can. They leave it on. They put the ball in my court at that point. They've made their call. They can
opt out of the phone calls.
Yeah.
Two Guys Talking says, can you use an apostrophe or a diacritical mark across the board? I don't know what that means. I think it means just in any browser. I don't know.
Okay, well, I can answer that about the diacritical marks. And that's why I mentioned earlier, I just didn't want to go into detail, and someone asked about a question about it. But if most of your audience is in the United States and you think that most of them are English speaking, then it's better for the United States to redirect the one that has the diacritical mark to the one that doesn't. And the reason is that all of the browsers that I've ever tested, with the notable exception of Safari, which is, I believe nowadays only on Mac. I think they discontinued Safari for Windows a few years ago. All of them, to avoid phishing attacks or potential phishing attacks, and I'm talking about phishing with the PH, they make it so that if there's a diacritical mark in the domain and the person does not have that language installed in their browser as a preferred language, it shows it in a ugly code that's called puny code or puny code, P-U-N-Y code. So it looks ugly unless the person has that language installed. So, if the person doesn't have that, it's going to look ugly if they only have English installed on the machine. So if the site is mainly directed for the United States, have the version of the domain that has the diacritical mark redirect to the other one, and that way at least it's going to look normal on the web phishing issue and how it's associated with that. And the example that I give is Bank of America. Somebody buys the bankofamerica.com domain, but they buy it with the O, so it's the Greek O, which looks identical to the O in English. And then you do a phishing attempt where they send you an email and people innocently click on it and they think that they're on bankofamerica.com because it says bankofamerica.com, and the naked eye can't notice the difference between an O in English and an O in Greek. So to avoid the potential phishing attacks, all of the browsers other than Safari will convert it to Punycode or Punycode unless you have that other language installed. So if I have a site that's mostly for Latin America and Spain, then I make the final domain be the one that has the diacritical marks because I know that they're going to have that language installed. But if it's mainly for the United States, I do the reverse, and I hope that answers that person's question.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, Alan, thanks so much. I'm going to try to cram another couple of people in here before.
You're welcome. And just
since
you mentioned the audio quality, this is the BP40, which
yes.
I know that Dave has tested before.
Yep.
So
yep. Sounds great.
Throw that in at the end.
No, it sounds awesome. And what's it going into?
Right now, it's always changing, but right now it's going into, not that I would actually pick it for this particular application, but it's connected to a $900 preamp from audio Sound devices. I'm sorry, you've heard of
sound
probably
devices, yes.
from the video
that-
because a lot of people who use a really high end audio mixer in the field will use one from Sound Devices. Well, this is one that they sent me for review, so that's the one that I have connected right now.
Cool. Yeah, let me check. No
fairly
sound devices
high-end
under my tree.
preamp.
Yep. No,
And
they're
A to
awesome.
D converter. It has a built-in A to D converter in that particular mixer. It's a field mixer.
Awesome.
Wow.
Hey, Alan, so good to see you in person, man.
Thanks, buddy.
We will see you around
Likewise.
Have a good holiday.
As
Until
always.
next time.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, if someone wants to jump in and tell us about, or how many domains do you own, Jim Collison? Yeah, you talk to Dave all the time. Whoever else is out there, I think there's an open seat. We answered that question. Let's answer another question. How many domains that have become essentially a to-do list for you and your projects, aka I call those browser tabs, because I have all these browser tabs. Those are my to-do. Yeah, I mean, I said before that my the one that I had just re-upped, which was the .tv, that one is I've given myself one more year. Obviously, you buy them a year at a time or 2 years. I could have saved money. I almost did 2 years. I was like, I'll save a little more money. I have a year, Ray, to build that show if it doesn't happen. But again, it goes back to that question: do I want to? Here I am deciding to build on top of this essentially expensive brand. It's not prohibitive. I figured if I do build that brand, it's something that will make money. So it's a business expense. So anyways, Jim, welcome, buddy.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Yeah. Lovely day of
the answer is 10. That's what all I
10.
got. I feel a little inadequate maybe.
I'm going to go look mine up right now. So
yeah, no, I'm a Hover guy and they're all over at Hover. And I hold one or two for some customers. I bought it for them and then I just bill them each year when they come due. I just bill it, I add it to their billing. And then the rest, I got one for my daughter and she I think she's the averagegirl.me. And that one that works out pretty well. I've got a TV as well. My main site's the averageguy.tv.
Right.
Bought some we have some high schoolers who created their own app. And so I purchased the domain to kind of hold it for them because I thought maybe it would be a product that might work someday. And so I went out and bought the organizer.com so they could, we spelled it differently.
Shoot. I have a page 2 on mine. This is not good.
Yeah, I had to.
You have a problem if you have a page 2.
Yeah.
I have a .info. Like we have a show called Cyber Frontiers, and I couldn't get cyberfrontiers.com or .net or I couldn't get any of those. And so .info was available.
I'm laughing because I just checked to see if there was a domain that was available, and it's not. And it turns out
you own it.
You already own
it's not
it.
available because it's yours, Dave.
How to podcast.me. I already own it. Because that guy said .me. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool little name. It's a little, yeah. So
12 is my answer.
I have a
12.
problem.
Oh, not too bad.
I just went over to page 2.
And are you using Hover? Because I know they have a discount.
I do use Hover, and I don't get a discount for bulk.
Check.
I know. I need to check. That is news to me. I love Hover. Here's the question: are they all podcast? Could they be podcast related? One, yes.
I have a ton.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that I did is show, the page. So if you go to homegadgetgeeks.com, all that is for my mobile apps. So they land on a single page, and it's got all the links that they need to get subscribed. Because I have a network page at theaverageguy.tv. So that for me allowed to take the podcast name and make a mobile page out of it. Make it real simple.
So what about we brought up, I don't know how much you've been watching, Jim, but we brought up so many topics. What do you do when you can't get the show name? Or do you even look? Is that important to you? Do you think that's important?
I think it is, but I'll say the example we were talking about. We started a new podcast at Gallup, and it's based on, so the host, his name is Frank Newport. He wrote a book 10 years ago called Polling Matters. And so we just named it Polling Matters, the podcast. And I thought that sounded, if you said the show, like,
right.
What does that mean, right? And so I thought in this particular case, the podcast worked really well. But there are other times where I've heard other people say, they name of their name of their program and they put show on it, and I think that sounds really good, right? It kind of makes sense at that point. So
outside of making sense, does either one lend more credibility in some subjective thinking way? Like, does podcasting? Do you think people might write you off if it's podcasting? I'm outside the podcasting world. Do people think, it's that podcast thing, right?
I don't think so.
No,
you're always getting. There's people who like it and there are people who don't, and I don't think if there's a perfect formula there to say it should always be show or it should always be podcast. Either way, I think you build that brand around it, and so depending on your audience and how they're going to listen to it and how they're going to see it and how you're going to promote it, I think that kind of dictates. And then once you get it, just stick to it and go with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Barbara Phillips in the chat says, using show to me allows more than audio podcasting. Now, I'm going to say, I defend all the time, video podcasting. Video is podcasting, but I get what she's saying. And that's why I said about show, it sometimes feels limiting to say podcast because that is what we are. What if you're a YouTube channel? You're not technically a podcast, but most people, they're not associating the word podcast with iTunes or RSS feeds specifically anymore. Podcast. That's why I think I use the two interchangeably, because I think when you say podcast, some people don't even realize what that means. They just know it as kind of this show, usually an audio only type show.
I think though that because Serial's made the word podcast kind of cool, I think now,
right now. Yeah.
And, it's Polling Matters. We're trying to reach politically, people who are involved in the political, because it's all our political numbers that we poll on. And they know the word podcast right now. They understand that, Obama's got a podcast and John McCain has a podcast and Trump. I don't know if Trump has a podcast. I hope not. So
it's going to be huge.
I hope. Actually, let him just talk himself into oblivion.
It's right. He already has. But, so for us to use the word podcast made more sense, I think, to that audience.
Well, and then what was the original name of the show? Something Matters, right?
Polling Matters.
So if you throw Polling Matters show, now you're in the double S area, and it gets icky.
No.
So
yeah, you're right. And we didn't buy it. We didn't buy pollingmatters.com. We haven't bought any of those yet. It's hosted on Spreaker, and eventually it'll migrate onto Gallup.com. They'll just move it over onto our own property where it should belong. But
and I know I said this in the chat room, but you have to pay attention as well to what it spells, because if I did a show on Bitcoin and it's called Bits Exchange, it ends up spelling Bit Sex Change. So you have to be careful. And then, so we talked about, be careful. What can you say it? That's always fun. And then what does it spell? And then everything else. But
I'm always scared when first of all, every time I buy a domain, I can't tell you how many times I proofread. I'm like, just because you hit and you bought it, right? And I know there's a letter wrong and I have to buy it again. Or like, am I really able to get this domain? I must have spelt it wrong. So I look at it a million times. And then I'm always scared when I buy it that it's like, what else does it spell that I'm not seeing? Like Bit Sex Exchange.
Right. Have you guys ever run into this? I swear there's a weird bot that I've had at least 6 people that have found the domain they want. They don't buy it. They go back a week or 2 later and it's not available. I don't.
So that feels like one of those urban legends. Like I'm always worried. People are always worried of typing in their idea into a domain register because they feel like it's going to get swept up if I don't buy it. I have never had that happen. I type a lot of stuff in.
I've had 6 people. I've never happened to me because if I think I'm going to buy it, I'll, obviously in my case, I just buy it and then I let it go later. Because I would rather waste $10 than go, doggone it. Now we got to add show to it.
And that's the question is, what really happened? Is it coincidental? Because it's going to happen every so often. You deal with a lot of people who are starting domain names. So of the hundreds of people you've dealt with, sometimes some people a domain's going to get snatched up right from underneath someone, because guess what? It's really hard to even find a domain to fit what you think of these days, because it feels like they're almost all taken. I'm blown away by some of the domains I've purchased domains just because they're available. I was like, I can't believe that's available. I have to buy it.
Yeah, I have one of those. I used to have one of my original podcasts was called Battling Bands, and I own battlingbands.com, and I'm like, that's a cool domain. I should do now. What I should do is put up for auction because I'm never going to use it at this point, and see what I can get. That's actually, I'm going to write that down.
I was going to say, have you done that? So you have, Dave, you have all those domains. Like, do you just let them go, or do you try to sell them? How does that work?
Many of them, like I just said, don't renew thejillianmichaelshow.com. I'm like, whatever. Because she bought, I used to have Jillian Michaels Show, and that was another one. I should have gone to her and say, hey, do you want to buy this? I did, and she never got back to me. So I just like, I'm not wasting that money anymore. But I should have put it up for auction or something. I've never done that. As far as I know, is that something where it only costs you money if you sell it kind of thing? I've never done it.
Never done it. Todd Cochran would be the guy for that. I believe he has like just infinite amounts of domains, and he sells them sometimes too. Or he has them taken from him. He had something recently. Do you recall what it was? It was like a big company.
CNN
podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
Got taken away. Yeah.
At some level, did they pay him? You should have to pay me at least a little bit. You can't just
paid him what he bought it for.
Right.
What doesn't make sense to me there is CNN is theirs, yes, but not CNN podcast. Like that feels overreaching. Like I could tack any word on and just claim it's mine. Like CNN refrigerator. Like I have that. You can't just take that. I don't know. It feels wrong. We need a lawyer.
Well, that's the problem, right? I don't think they said they had to. I just think they said, "Oh, we'll have our lawyers call you."
He got a stern letter that made it.
Do you want to go toe to toe with CNN? This is the problem.
That's the problem. You can't. You're not going to be able to fight it. Do you want to spend the money to fight it? You don't. So you kowtow to the threat of the letter.
Yeah, he talked about it on the new media show. They were saying that they were kind of they were kind of wankers about it to make it up. Yeah, they're because
like not even nice about it. Like not even like
be
not at all.
They don't see him as a peer. I mean, they see him as like you should have known when you bought this thing that we were going to come after you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he probably wanted to cash in. He did know when he bought it. He's like, yeah, like this will be worth a few dollars, and they should have paid up. I mean, just reputation wise, just to be a good company, they should have tossed him $100.
They have to defend it though. They have to defend CNN. They have to defend that as a trade.
Right.
CNNrefrigerators.com.
Check it out. Otherwise, somebody else could create CNN. Dave and I talked about this on Saturday. You have to defend that. Gallup, we have to deal with that all the time. I mean, George Gallup gave out the Gallup name to all these companies around the world back in the 40s. And then when a new company took over Gallup back in the 80s, they wanted those names back. And we had to go back and buy them because it was a trademark that had not been defended.
I just thought the whole thing, just for a reputation standpoint, they could have been cool about it because he did talk about it on his show. They don't know he even has a show, whatever, but be cool. I'm just saying, be cool. Happy holidays. 'Tis the season. Okay. Be cool, man. Peace.
Hey, I'm looking at Hover's cancellation policy, by the way. I've never done this, but you have 5 days with Hover if you buy it and you don't want it, 5 days and they'll refund it. Apparently it takes 5 days for the official domain to be registered with ICANN or something like that. And so you get those 5 days and they'll refund you full up to 5 days.
Very cool. People are going to go buy so many domains now. They're going to forget about the 5 days and just send your bill to Jim. Send your bill to Jim.
Don't do it.
Awesome. This has been fun. This is a great conversation. I think that this should definitely be put in the Roundtable feed, even if, I don't know. I say it's Podcasters Roundtable, round 63. Domain names. It's been good. We got a lot of good stuff. I couldn't recreate this one, so I'll put it in the feed. It'll be good times. Thanks for everybody for participating. I guess probably head out. A little bit of a hurricane's going to come through that door pretty soon. So
excellent.
It's gonna be time to go do some playing. Go build some Legos. But
nice.
Dave, seriously. Happy holidays.
Yes, everybody. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa Masaka, whatever it is you're celebrating.
Festivus.
And, you can find me at schoolofpodcasting.com. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. And, this is, if you're watching on Blab and you have never experienced the Roundtable, podcastersroundtable.com. Sign up. We'll bring you on. Jim has been a part of that. He is a long-standing roundtabler always participating. So, Jim, happy holidays. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ray. Always great talking to you guys. And I listen a lot more than I'm on, and I always appreciate your guys' opinion and what you do, and love the roundtable. So thanks for letting me jump in.
That is the only dilemma. And one of the reasons I do the roundtable on Google Plus is I can theoretically bring 10 people on at a time. And I have loaded it up 8, 9. I think we might have pushed it to 9 one time. I'm not sure if we hit 10. But I swear almost everybody that's been on has been like so killer that it's almost like an audition. I'm like, I want to bring back, and I go back to the ringers. Like sometimes we need like a fill in, and I know there are certain people, Jim, I think I can hit up Jim pretty late and be like, hey Jim, and I know he can talk about anything. So that's always good. But
and I get so much time with Dave. So it's
I know.
I try to save those, those seats for others, because I get every Saturday with Dave, and that's just awesome.
That's right. That's sweet. You too. I hope you bought Christmas gifts for each other. I got you nothing.
No, not a thing.
No, we
later we're going to exchange Amazon gift cards. Here's your $25 gift card. Thank you. Here's my $25 gift card.
You know what? Dave did that for me one time on my birthday, I believe. He sent me. That was amazing. So that's podcasting for you folks. Good friends.
I don't have it behind me.
Right.
But
Thanks for having me on, guys. Dave, I'll see you on Saturday.
See Dave or see Jim. Look, you guys see each other so much, I'm getting your names confused.
That's right. No, Kim in the chat room bought me a dry erase board.
Amazing.
Because she heard me on Ask the Podcast Coach. She goes, I need to get a board or something for the board. And we go to the Cleveland Podcasters meetup. Merry Christmas. Here's your board. I'm like, wow, how cool is that?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You guys rock. So everyone in the chat, thanks so much. I'm going to bug out, but Emily, Barbara, and so many people. There's so many good questions I feel like I missed. Sam. Man, it's just not enough time. We could literally sit here all day, I think, and not run out of content. Well, we won't run out of content. But, and Blab's one of those things where you could just keep going. Jason Bryant, thanks, buddy. Lots of fun. All right, Dave.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Wave goodbye.
See ya.
How do you stop the recording on this thing?
Over on the side.
Oh, you can pause it.
That's it. And then when you hit